Welcome to Horse Person. I'm Beth Bears.
And I'm Caroline Culbertson. Today's episode is one that I think is going to land really deeply for a lot of you because it lives at the intersection of something we don't talk about enough in the sport and something we all inevitably face: grief, change, and what it looks like to begin again from the start. If you listen to my previous conversation with renowned sports psychologist Dr. Jenny Susser, you already know how powerful her voice is in this space. That episode where she shared her personal experience of losing her horses was one of the most downloaded and talked about episodes we've ever had on this podcast. And I think that is because Dr. Jenny has this rare ability to put words to experiences that feel really impossible to articulate when you are in them.
And today we're continuing that conversation, but from a different place in the journey. Because what happens after the loss? What happens when the barn goes quiet, when the routine changes, when the horse that knew you better than anyone is no longer there? And eventually, when you consider opening yourself back up again. In this episode, Dr. Jenny brings us inside her real-time experience of losing not just one, but all of her horses within a year, and what it's looked like to step back into the unknown of new partnerships.
We talk about something that I think every rider has felt at some point, that moment where you swing your leg over a new horse, and instead of feeling at home, you feel doubt. And sometimes your mind can get loud and your body feels unfamiliar and the horse feels unfamiliar and you start questioning the things that you've done 1,000 times before and wondering if you can continue to do them. It's this weird combination of fear, but also intuition that something is different and loss. And so Dr. Jenny is going to break down the neuroscience behind that voice in your head, the one that says, get off, this isn't right, you're not safe on a new horse that isn't familiar to you, and how to distinguish between real danger and the discomfort of unfamiliarity. This episode is about rebuilding trust with a new horse once you've moved on from a previous horse that really felt like home, but also rebuilding trust with yourself. It's about regulating your nervous system, finding your footing again, and allowing space for something new without diminishing that heart horse that came before. Let's hear from Dr. Jenny. Dr. Jenny, I have to say, first of all, before we dive into this topic, that the episode that you and I recorded about grief and your personal journey with grief is one of the most downloaded episodes that we have, and also the one that I've received the most feedback on of any episode that I've recorded for this podcast. And I think that the reason for that is the way that you came to that conversation and shared very deeply about your journey, losing your horse. And it was such a gift to the entire listener base of this podcast, but it was also a really, really big gift to me. And something that I spoke about on the show was my anticipatory grief around losing my dog. And I have since said goodbye to that dog. And I have to say that conversation, and I haven't told you this, but that conversation lived in me during the process of losing that dog. And I won't say that I felt prepared, because you can't feel prepared for something like that. That was my sole dog of 13 years. And I had so much fear for so many years about losing her, as you know, and as you really supported me through. I think that when you're in that kind of, I don't know, anguish is really the best word that I kind of have for that. There's not that many voices that are in your head. You know, there's so much noise in your head that there's not room for very many voices in your head. But I have to tell you that your voice was in my head. And I just really appreciate that you were there. I felt maybe not alone. And so first, I just really want to say thank you for that.
You're welcome.
This conversation today has threads that tie back to that podcast that we did before. Our horses, unfortunately, do not live forever, and you are now in this process of you've lost your gelding in February, who you had for most of his life, um, and you are in a moment of moving into a relationship with two new horses. And so today, what we're going to talk about, Dr. Jenny, is, when you lose a horse that you've known deeply for years, it isn't just a riding change, it's a relationship loss. Tell us where you are in that journey.
Well, how about I catch everybody up with a little bit
Yeah.
of a timeline? So I think we did that podcast in 2025, like it was just weeks after I had lost Robley, right?
Yeah.
And so I had lost Vienna the beginning of January 2025. Like Robley died like 3.5 weeks later. So I lost both of them in January of 2025. And then I had one horse left, Majestic. And he died February 2nd, 2026. So I'm Jewish, so we do the whole year thing, right? The year thing is very important. So I get to the 1-year anniversary of Robley's death, and I'm like, okay, all right, I made it. And then 2 days later, Majestic died. And it was stunning. Like, I thought he was going to be around a little bit longer. It was amazing having one horse for a year. I hadn't had one horse maybe ever. And I had one horse. And so I don't even think I missed a day with him if I was in town. I had a little travel here and there, but if I was in town, I spent every day with him. And we had magical walks and talks. And so we had like this just amazing year of just the two of us. And then he had a chronic colic issue, and I figured that would be what took him, and it was. And it was that week where we had 22 degrees here in Ocala. And so the morning that he died, it was finally like warm enough to take off the blanket and to like really like go outside and be in the sun and have a proper death. And we did. And then I was like, my head was just spinning. And it was the first time in 24 years I didn't have a horse. And my sweet staff at the barn, I have these wonderful guys at the barn, and I didn't go to the barn for weeks. And I finally went over to the barn, and my guy comes up to me and he wraps his arms around me. He goes, "Are you okay? I miss you." And he's crying, like he's like, "You go get a horse, please." And so I was doing a little bit of like, okay, well, what do I do? And Meta, my sweet, sweet partner, Meta, who just wants me to be happy, has a barn full of horses. And she's like, ride this one and ride that one. And you can have this one and you can have that one and you can do this and you can do that. And so I hadn't ridden a horse that wasn't mine, that I didn't love, that I didn't have like a decade plus long relationship with in like 15 years.
Wild.
Right? And so I go and I get on one of Meta's horses, and my goal was like that deep breath. My goal was to just stay really present. So I hadn't ridden a horse that I didn't love or have a deep relationship in 15 plus years. And I hadn't ridden very much in the last 5 years because I was having some back problems. Majestic wasn't totally healthy enough for, so I really hadn't ridden very much in like 5 years. So I go and I get on this sweet little Lusitano gelding, who's a previous bullfighter. And my goal is to stay really present. And so I'm noticing like, I don't know this horse. He's been in the barn for a year, so he's just really sweet, but I don't know this horse. And I have no relationship really with him. And I get on and I'm watching my watch. Like I have my watch, so I'm watching my heart rate. My goal is to keep my heart rate under 100 because like I want to keep my wits about me. And I'm good. Like I'm breathing, I'm box breathing away. And I get on And we walk off away from the mounting block, and I take like 4 or 5 strides, and I hear my mind go, get off, get off, get off. This is bad. Get off. And I was like, well, hello, and you shut up. And it was so fascinating because, I'm always talking about from a neuroscience perspective, the human brain, any brain loves those 3 things: predictability, familiarity, and certainty. And so I'm sitting here and I hear my mind go, get off, get off, get off. This is bad. This is bad. Get off. It feels weird. I don't recognize this. And so I'm like, okay, this is just the lack of familiarity, certainty, and predictability. Like nothing felt familiar, even though I've ridden for however long. I kept going. I rode. I did everything I wanted to do on the ride, and I got off, and I was like happy that I had stayed on, but I was miserable because I hated it. And my heart rate had stayed under 100, so I was super proud about that. The horse was perfect, and Meta was awesome. Poor Meta. She just wants me to be happy. And so I get on again the next day, and it's much better. And then I get on again the next day, and it was terrible. And then because it's just a different ride, right? Majestic was a big, moving, warm blood with a big walk. And this was a Lusitano who's got a beautiful Lusitano walk, but just different. So then I get on her big 17-hand, I don't know, some type of warm blood mare. I don't know if she's Dutch or whatever. And much better, right? Much better feel for me. But it was so fascinating to watch my mind tell me, get off. This is bad. Get off. This is bad. And it was all out of that unfamiliarity. And it was really surprising and kind of cool when I hung in there and developed some familiarity, and how that changed both my physiology and my psychology. So I thought that was really stunning. And I'm sharing that because we hear stuff like our little voice can be so mean and so disruptive and so unproductive and like poisoning, like it can really set us up for failure. And I hadn't ever heard the depth of the negativity in my little private voice until that day. Like it was a whole new level of what I started hearing myself say. And it was just like, wow. And it just cranked up the volume. Beth, I know you're dying to say something.
Well, I'm just so, as a lifelong anxiety sufferer, that voice and uncertainty and unpredictability are my worst nightmares. So yeah, thank you, Lexapro. But
I love Lexapro.
I love Lexapro. However, when you're saying this, my initial thing was, I would have gotten off. That's what because how did you know that wasn't like a woman's intuition? How
because
did you
was
know?
Up here, I didn't.
So you
really
didn't feel it in your gut.
I didn't feel it in my gut or in my heart. I heard it in my head, which, it really wasn't until that moment that I was like, oh, I don't feel unsafe. Like I wasn't scared.
Okay.
I wasn't nervous. I wasn't afraid for my life. And I didn't have a sense of this is bad. I just had a sense of this is not good in terms of how the recognizability was. Like I had a riding partner for, we got Majestic as a 3-year-old. He was originally Meta's horse, and he was my horse for like 15 years. But we finished each other's sentences, And so to get on something that I didn't know was like so black and white, like opposite ends of the spectrum. So I knew it wasn't a safety issue. And I kind of looked at Meta. She's like, you're good. Everything's good. And then I was like, okay, yeah, my mind is just being a total tart right now. Just stop that.
Why do you think that? Why do you think that is?
Protection and survival, right? So our brains are designed, so brain and mind, like not interchangeable. And kind of like one of the things I'll say is like brain is hardware, mind is software.
Mm.
Okay. But sometimes your hardware influences your software and your software influences
Mhm.
your hardware. Right. And so in the human brain and mind, I find it a little blurry, but that's kind of how I talk about it. And so the brain's number one job is to keep you alive. And so everything that we filter everything through survival. And when we have that relief of survival, when we feel like we're okay and there's that element of safety, that creates a whole bunch of things. It creates what we call self-regulation. It creates the ability for co-regulation, which I'll talk about. But really, my brain saying get off was because it was unfamiliar, right? And so, which is like kind of the conundrum around when people say, oh, like success lives outside your comfort zone. Like, does it? Like, I think it's okay to stretch yourself, but you have to do it in a way that creates enough of a sense of safety that you can actually function there. And so intellectually, I knew the horse was good. I knew meta was right there. I know that I have skills. And I also knew that this was going to feel weird. I knew it was going to feel unfamiliar. I knew it was going to be unpredictable. I knew it was going to make me a little batty. And it did. And when I heard that, I could recognize it like as if it was someone else saying it to me. Like it was almost as if there was somebody else in the arena going, get off. And I was like, why?
Interesting. Okay, wait, I want to just clarify too on that point that you said, the difference between the brain and the mind. So do you refer to the mind as like, is the mind that inner voice or that voice that was talking to you, but not your brain?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the brain was like, wait, the mind says we're not safe. Are we safe? Like, the brain's doing like the body check, like what's going on in the body? Is the body okay? Which is why I was watching my heart rate, because heart rate and cognition have an inverse relationship. The higher your heart rate, the lower your cognition. Right. And so for me, if I know if I can keep my heart rate under 100, then I've got super good cognition still. Right. And so when my mind said, no, this is bad, my brain was like, is it? And I could go, my body's fine. I'm safe. And I could take in the data that was honest and true and say, okay, I'm okay. And then my mind could go, oh, am I? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is your main tool, you mentioned the box breath, is that the breathe in for 4, hold for 4,
4, 4,
exhale
4, 4.
4, 4, 4? Had your heart rate started to escalate and you felt that, would your initial go-to have been the box breath on the horse?
Yes and no. Like, so I didn't want to count, but so the key to any type of breath work for physiological regulation, I've said this a million times, but I'll say it again, is to make sure that the exhalation phase is longer than the inhalation, right? Slow and long, like you're blowing out candles on a birthday cake, right? And so that's what I did. Now, the thing that I also did was I did enough breath work and visualization, a little bit of prep stuff, so that I didn't let my physiology get away from me. I never allowed myself to let that get away. The moment I felt any type of elevation physically, I jumped on it and I was just breathing the whole day. I probably wrote it like 11
like
o'clock in the
preparing
morning.
before.
Yeah. And that's what I tell my athletes, right? So like if I have an athlete going to a really big event, I'm like, don't ever let it get away from you. You stay preemptive. You stay on top of it. You keep your breath focus going. You be looking at whatever it is that helps you monitor your physiology so that you remain regulated, so that you don't ever let it get so far away that it's hard to bring it back.
Did you use any sort of visualization before that ride? And part of the reason that I'm asking that is it seems to me it would be hard to visualize an experience that is unfamiliar to you.
Yeah. So what I tried to imagine was what it was like to be in the saddle and look down like through the ears and at the mane, right? And then when
I belong here.
Well, like, what does this feel like?
Yeah.
And what could it feel like? so when you do mental imagery, there's first person or third person. And third person is, and the research shows that they're equally effective and have slightly different uses. But
Oh,
most
wow.
people visualize first person, which is they see what they're looking at. And so that's what I really made sure that I stayed in was, okay, what will it look like? What will my hands look like? What will I be wearing? My gloves, the horse's mane, like he's white, but he's got a gray mane. What what will all that look like? Just to put me there. And I didn't have to do much. It was really just so that when I threw my leg over and I sat in the saddle, it wasn't completely unfamiliar.
Yeah.
It was, okay, this
Yeah.
is what I thought it would look like.
I also want to take one step back to before the day that you decided to ride. And I'm sure that you didn't decide on the day, but I think when we lose horses, especially those that we know like the back of our hand, that are our heart horses that are so familiar to us, there is this question after they go of, how am I going to know when it's time to go back to the barn? Or how am I going to know when it's time to get back in the saddle? How did you determine that for yourself?
I wanted to go try a horse. And so I thought, I better ride.
You had that little itch.
Yeah.
Oh, it was like the
Yeah.
horse girl itch. You were like, I've been away too long. I have to go.
Well, I decided I wanted a particular kind of horse, and I found there was a horse locally, and there was like a pressure to go try this horse. And I thought, I better go get on a horse because I haven't ridden anything else. Like I needed the unfamiliar to be familiar.
Right.
Actually. So I needed to get on a couple of strange horses so that I would have that a little bit under my belt so that when I went and tried this horse, I could have a good measure. Like I'd be able to actually feel the horse instead of all of my, holy crap, this feels so
Right.
unfamiliar.
Right.
Now, if I hadn't had a horse that I wanted to go try, it might have taken me a tick longer. But so when I was trying to decide, I just turned 59 a couple weeks ago. Like, do I get another horse? Do I do this again? Like, I just spent, the last better part of a decade with older horses, taking care of them. Like, do I want to do this again? And I thought, okay, if I lived in the city or in the suburbs, I could probably get away with not having another horse. But I can't live where I live. I live on
On a farm.
On a farm.
beautiful, amazing,
Yeah.
incredible horse farm and not have a horse. I don't. And then I sort of looked inside and I was like, I do miss that. Like I have dogs, I have cats, but every relationship is different. Like the relationship with a dog is so different than the relationship with a horse. And cats, they kind of let you relate to them, but
Did you miss the riding or did you miss the relationship more?
the relationship.
Yeah.
Relationship.
Riding to me is like a byproduct. Meta is like, if I can't ride, take me out back and shoot me. If anyone ever finds her outback shot, it wasn't me.
I'm with you though. If I never could ride again, I still would go see my horse every day. But I also, Carolyn and I talk about this at all, and I don't know what your relationship was with it, but I didn't grow up competing and riding. It just,
No, I didn't
I just
either.
I just came. So I think it's, Caroline, would you say you would need to ride that would be?
No, and I used
not
to
anymore.
think that was the case. And now I'm in a phase of life where I'm not riding consistently. And I'm still really, really happy to have horses here at my farm and in my backyard. And so, and I think and this is kind of on the same topic. And so bear with me. I'm just going to opine for a quick second because I know we do have a lot of mothers who listen, who, message about, can you talk about the pregnancy, postpartum, whatever experience with riding? And that was a huge fear of mine going into having children, is how it was going to change not just my ability to ride from a time perspective, because that's what everyone talks about, right? Is, oh, you're just not going to have as much time. But I worried that I wouldn't care as much about riding, and I was like, well, this is such a huge part of who I am, and I have athletic goals both in and out of the saddle, and am I going to lose that part of my identity because it's just not going to matter to me as much? And this might scare some people to hear, but that did happen. I didn't care as much. And I guess I didn't realize that actually could be very freeing.
Mm-hmm.
And now I feel like I'm in a phase where like we're done having children. You know, I'm still like, you know, I'm only 6 months postpartum. So I'm not riding regularly again yet, mostly from a time perspective. But I know that once my kids get a little bit older, that riding will become a regular part of my week again. And I'm excited for that to happen. And I also don't feel super rushed. And so I think that you can still identify as a horse girl and a rider and an equestrian and a competitive human being and somebody that cares deeply about your goals and somebody who's ambitious and driven and, you know, improvement oriented without it being the thing that consumes all of your time and mental bandwidth. And so that's my tangent for
I think that's going to be really helpful for people, though, because you also have people whose horses are, you know, Blue had 6 months of issues, hoof bruise, whatever, and I couldn't ride at all, you know, and that happens to us all the time. And so how do we change our relationship when you have those goals? Like you said, like they don't have to go away. It's just a season.
It's just a season.
Well, you know, and the great part is that how you relate to your goals should upgrade as you age, right? Because we can't do the same things with our bodies that we could however many years ago, you know, and that should be really fine. And having children, that changes your brain, right? There's a whole bunch of studies that show that having children changes your brain. I had a lot of women come to me after having children and say, I'm not bomb-proof anymore. You know, like,
yes.
And there's two things to that. So like, as we age, our brain ages too. And our brain knows I don't bounce as well. I'm not as viscous. I'm not as strong. I don't have all those hormones circulating to help me with my strength and my right? So all of that's really normal and really natural. And once you become a mother, there's also this part of your brain that's like, my number one job went from taking care of me to taking care of that.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that is never going to leave your mind ever, ever, ever. And so you're going to make different decisions based on that you are now responsible for another being, let alone 3 or 2. Okay. And so that's awesome. But what you said about it being a bit of like relief or less pressure is awesome, because then you can kind of fit your riding and whatever your goals are, whether they're in the ring competitive or with yourself competitive or with your spouse or with your neighbor or with the hunt club, wherever you go to do your horse thing, your goals should like adjust and align with whatever as your identity grows and changes. So I think that's awesome.
And can I tell you that I feel like it also allows you to see things more clearly. And there are decisions that I made, I think, when I was, you know, had less life experience, didn't have kids, and was solely focused on riding and how I thought things should be. I mean, there were decisions there were decisions that I made that I wouldn't make now, but it was also the way in which I made them that I look back and I was like, I was an asshole.
Sure.
I mean,
ditto.
Yeah. Like there were ways that I handled situations because I was so self-absorbed.
Yeah, of course.
Honey, that's
wild.
Youth. And that's youth, right?
Youth,
so like
all of us in our 20s. Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. You know, like wisdom is something that comes through time and experience. And I heard a great definition of wisdom was that it was once your memory loses its emotional grip, then it can become wisdom.
Oh, cool.
Holy
Once your
cow.
memory loses its emotional grip,
I
then
know
it can become
exactly what you
wisdom.
mean by that.
Yeah, isn't that
Yeah.
fantastic?
Whoa. And some
Wow.
people hearing that are not going to know
What
Not
that means,
yet.
quite
'cause
what that means yet, but I think
yeah.
that everyone will at some
Eventually, like,
point.
put that
Wait.
if you're young, if you're under 30, stick that in your back pocket because it'll
Oof,
mean something someday,
yes.
right? But, you know, if you're under 30, your brain is barely fully developed
Mhm.
and you haven't
Yeah.
had you know, you haven't worn the shoe leather. And that's
Mhm.
just part of it. You know, like, okay, yes. So, oh my gosh, I look back at my god, oh, before I was 30. You know, like, and it's embarrassing some of
Yeah.
the things, right? But that's youth, right?
Yeah.
So as adults or, you know, women of a certain age or approaching a certain age or, you know, parents, we look at 20-year-olds and we go, I remember that. Right. And so we have grace and space for that.
Mhm.
And even if we didn't have it for ourselves, or even if there were people who didn't have
Mhm.
it, there were always, you know, like I think about my swim coach in college, like she just had so much space for me. Even when I was
Mm.
just a total butthead, like she just had so much space for me because she knew, you
Mhm.
know, like, you'll grow up one day and then you'll be awesome when you grow up because you were this butthead
Yeah.
and you survived it. So,
There's
Yeah.
also something to like, and Caroline, what you said and about being selfish or that like ambition mind that we have in our 20s and the stripping away of that identity. Like I'm really dealing with that in my own life with having a child in my acting career because a big job just ended after 8 years. And it's like, wait, my whole identity has been I'm ambitious, I'm an actress. I've been doing this, trying to be an actor since I was a little girl. And now my main priority is my daughter, obviously, because that's what happens when you have a child. But there
Mhm.
is a grief and a mourning of that identity that I know is never coming back, right? I
yeah.
mean, you can't go backwards. So embracing that, how do you embrace that versus try to fight against it or, you know, letting yourself mourn, but not too much that person that you were, not getting lost in that trap. I think
Mhm.
that's really difficult, at least for me.
So part of that is putting something new into the future,
How so?
right? Well, so after, like, I'll never be a swimmer again. I'll never be a
Right.
competitive athlete again, but I'll never forget what that felt like to chase that. And
Mm.
so I have new things that I chase. So I've never competed on horses. And like, after I retired from swimming and from surf racing as a lifeguard, like, then I was like, okay, I'm going to hang up my competitive sport shoes because it takes a lot of energy and I wanted to put my energy into something else. So I put it into my career. And so I put that identity energy into becoming the best Dr. Jenny that I can. And
Yeah.
so it's a different identity. Now, I always will have, you know, sport Jenny. That'll never
Mhm.
leave me. Like, that totally gave me who I am. And I'm super grateful for that period of time in my life and everything that I learned and did then. Um, and sometimes I get a little nostalgic and look back and it can be, you know, like, oh, and, you know, but that's okay. You know, like, it's okay
Is
to have those incomplete pieces. Like,
is nostalgia painful for you?
not as much as it was initially. Like, when I
Okay.
first retired from swimming, like, when I retired from swimming, like, I swam in the late 80s. So there really wasn't professional swimming. There wasn't
Oh.
money to be made. You know, like, the only people who made money back then were, like, you know, gold medal world record holders, and they barely made money. Like, it's not like it
Hmm.
is. There was no social
Yeah.
media. There was no
Right.
NIL. There was, you know, if you got a scholarship, that's how you paid for your career, especially if you were a woman in, you know, like an Olympic sport like swimming, which people paid attention to every 4 years, and that was it.
Mhm.
So I retired at the ripe old age of 22. And so that, you know, like, yeah, and then I went into surf racing when I was a LA County lifeguard, and that was fun and kept me competitive and fit. Um, so the nostalgia initially was not nostalgia, it was lost.
Mhm.
And then as I, you know, grew and went to graduate school and had like this whole new piece of identity that I could develop, then it lost the sting.
Mhm. Yeah. When you are, moving into these new relationships with these two new horses that you now have, I want to talk about any sort of strategies that you have around appreciating and trying to genuinely see what a new horse has to offer, keeping in mind that when you're coming off of a really special partnership, it is so easy to see what that new horse isn't.
Yeah.
How has that been for you?
So I bought 2 Clydesdales.
I love it
In
so
all their
much.
glory. And they are beautiful.
They're so
They're
beautiful.
beautiful.
So I've always wanted a Clydesdale, and Majestic died the Monday before the Super Bowl. And so, and I'd forgotten, it was like kind of one of those things that I was like a little like, I never told anyone, like like I kind of couldn't
We all have
imagine.
those things. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
right. I kind of couldn't
totally.
imagine telling Meta, I'd like a Clydesdale, like in our barn of like warm bloods
Warm
and
bloods.
Iberian horses, like I could just see her. The great thing is when I did finally like come out and say it, she was like, "Great, let's get one."
That's a good partner right
She's the
there.
best. She's the best. So he died. The Super Bowl was, 5 days later, and I was like, I want a Clydesdale. And so that kind of set me onto that. And so I found these 2, and Lily is 4 and Cooper is 6. And they ended up coming from the same farm. So they're just both beautifully trained and, young, but just so wonderful. And, in horse buying, like, we speed date and we have arranged marriages. And, I wrote a article 100 years ago for Dressage Today called Falling in Love Across a Crowded Paddock. I remember the first Humphrey Bogart movie I saw was probably like the original Sabrina, like
Oh, great movie.
and Humphrey
Yeah.
Bogart, like, like how he
Across
became
the
sex
room.
symbol. I mean, just, but like, like he walks in like a party and there she is on the other side of the room and he's like, I must marry her. Yeah. And you're like, what? Like, no wonder we're so messed up in relationships. Oh my God. But we do this in horses too. Now, the advantage that I have is that I have a trainer partner like Meta, right? And so I found them, I vetted them, I did not go try them. But I also have, like, I have great resources. I have Marsha Hartford Sapp, like she's an extraordinary trainer and she's down the road and she helped me go try this other horse. Linda Pirelli, Meta. Like, I'm set up to win, right? So I figured like I could take this risk, and if something really went sideways, then I would have a solution for it that would be good for me and good for the horse. So I felt like I was taking a really calculated risk. And so they got here, and being like the neuroscientist that I am, my really big focus initially was their nervous systems. Like, how do I help them regulate their nervous system? So she's 4. The trainer had only had her for like half a year. And then the 6-year-old horse Cooper, he had off and on since he was a yearling. And so I figured that the mare Lily would be like really kind of dysregulated from a lack of consistency. And then he would be dysregulated because he's probably missing his person. Because this guy, the trainer, Jonas Helmuth, had been his person. And so I was just really trying to be sensitive to that. They trailered down together. So we're immediately in love, put them in stalls next to each other, turned them out together so that they had each other, because that is what a nervous system needs. And we have multiple barns here on the property. So I put them down in the lower barn so that they could just kind of like settle into the land and the property and me without all the noise of Meta's busy training barn. And so I just really was not very demanding, really just like kind of allowed them to settle, did a lot of grooming. The first day that they got here, they arrived at like 2:00, put them in the stalls until they kind of calmed down a little bit. Then I put them in turnout and I don't even know when the last time they were turned out. They came from Iowa and the weather was just atrocious. And so I knew that I couldn't turn them out too much because they hadn't been on grass in 6 months. But, so I was like constantly managing this. But their first turnout, I just sat in the middle of the field as they ran around. And I just I stood and I just kind of like tracked them and like watched them, and they just kept looking at me, and then they'd run past me, and then they'd graze, and then they'd look at me, and then they'd run past me, and then they'd graze, right? And so I just was like, okay, I am here. I'm this person that's I'm going to be this consistent piece, one of the consistent pieces in your life. And draft horses, like, they are different from warm bloods or Iberians, they are just kind of like this, like they just, okay, I got this. I got you. Like walked in and out, looked, but didn't spook, like a little, like here and there, but not like, So the first week was really, can I get them to feel safe? And how do I do that? And then become familiar. Like, these are big horses. Like, like I had a Holsteiner that was 17-1 and really big. Like, he was Coeur de la Briere. So he was like his legs were big. Like, he was a big horse, but these guys are big. Right?
Yeah.
And their feet are like literally the size of a dinner plate, like they move quick,
strong.
right? So I'm like, yeah. And then I wanted to get their feet done because they needed their feet done and they needed their teeth done, right? And so there were all these things. And so my main focus originally was, can I help them regulate their nervous systems so that they can feel safe as soon as possible? And so that was the focus. It's funny that you say compare. I have not compared my relationship with my other horses to them at all. And I didn't even realize that until you said that. And I think it's mostly because I've really been trying to focus on this new relationship and like, how do I create connection and familiarity and predictability and trustworthiness between me and them, and then establish communication.
Yes. And I think also what I'm noticing about the way that you're talking about this experience, and I think this is important for people to hear, especially as adult amateurs who, when you get a new horse, you're kind of almost like sitting back and like you're the passenger to the experience in a way.
Oh, yeah.
You immediately were like, my role is going to be supporting them. So it's almost like you gave yourself something to do that you knew you could control. You can't control how they are going to react, but you're going to control what the variables that you can control, how you're going to turn them out together, what stalls are. So I think that in and of itself, we like stuff to do. We don't like things to happen to us.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a good reminder for people who are starting and on a new relationship with a horse. Like, what can you control? What can you do instead of just letting this horse that also is going to be like, what is going on? Letting it kind of slap you in the face.
And regulating your own nervous system, right?
Oh my
Dr.
goodness.
Jenny, because you know how to do that. We know.
I'll tell you. So I have done more humming this last week than probably ever in my life, because so when I
Why do we hum? Because
it helps regulate the nervous system. Okay, so
Any
the
song you
vibration, the vibration of the vocal cord, the vagus nerve sits right behind here. Okay, so the vagus nerve sits kind of between the jugular and this big sternocleidomastoid, right? This big muscle right here. The vagus nerve sits right back there. The vibration of the vocal cords can help stimulate the vagus nerve, which helps stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system. And so when I would walk them and handle them, I would hum, because I found that breathing just wasn't enough.
Wow. What's your go-to humming song?
Oh, it would like, I have this weird thing where I wake up every morning with a different song in my head.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah, really.
At least it's not like Frozen or like kids songs like me and Caroline wake up every morning with. You probably have something like the Rolling Stones or Neil Young or something very cool.
We
like
wake up to Blippi.
or Frozen. Frozen is like
quite
constant.
honestly, probably one of my biggest go-tos is John Denver. Honestly.
Oh yeah. Well, that's a good one just
look
for
at you,
being
look
outdoors.
at both of you went, oh yeah. Like
I
it's
know.
just soothing.
So sweet.
Right?
Yeah, beautiful.
And so like Annie's song is my favorite John Denver.
Played at my wedding.
Exactly.
It did. I love that.
That was the
song.
first song I learned how to play on the guitar. And so like I'll hum that or sing that.
Beautiful.
And it helps me. So humming, the vibration in the vocal cords, it makes you breathe, right? Because the only time the vocal cords make noise is through the exhale, not through the inhale, through the exhale. So, so I did a lot. So I still do a lot of humming. And now, so I moved them from the lower barn up to the upper barn 2 days ago. And now they're in a like almost 20-acre field, which they are loving. It's awesome. And I was in the stall with Lily this morning, and she's so lovely. Like my niece and my great niece and my great nephew and my nephew-in-law are in town, and my little 6-year-old great niece is a total horse girl. And I'll send you some pictures. Maybe you'll put them on with the podcast, because I have this just magical picture of her like holding Lily. Like they're just so sweet.
That's so sweet. Yeah, please send us anything that you have.
So I'm in her stall this morning, and my goal now is to get them to breathe, to get these horses to breathe with me. Because she's been here, I've had for her for almost 2 weeks, and she's only had 2 big blowouts with me there. And one of them was today. So I went in the stall this morning, and I was like, I am going to hum, massage, groom, be with you until you take a deep breath out. 37 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
That's
what she did.
that's
She
so
then released.
important.
That is
And I
so
was
important
like,
for people to hear this.
I am going to stand, like, I am going to be
not leaving.
I am going to regulate until you come to me, right? Remember, like, either you're regulating me or I'm regulating you. And I am going to regulate and regulate and regulate until that feels safe enough for you to take a breath and go down and take a bite of your hay.
Because that also is what we feel like we're missing when we don't have those horses that we spoke the same language. We could finish each other's sentences metaphorically, is that co-regulation with those old horses was there, but you have to establish it with the new horse.
Well, yeah. And the trust, you know, like she looks for me. She tracks me much more than Cooper does. Like I'll whistle and she'll, you know, like, so she knows, like, I'm very recognizable for her. And they both come right to me. They'll come right to the fence. But to get them to breathe is next level for me, right? And with Majestic, you know, like I knew how to get him to breathe. You know, if he was tense, I knew how to get him to breathe. And so now I just have like, so I'm looking at this as like discovery, like how do we discover this together? Like this ability to go, okay, I'm okay, because now we're going to go to work, right? Like now we're going to go in the round pen, and now we're going to have to go in the arena for the first time and saddle and, you know, and ride and explore my 150 acres and right. And all of these things. And if we can get breathing in our pocket, then we can do anything.
Yeah. Dr. Jenny, one of the things that you said earlier in this conversation was you had a moment of, do I do this again? Do I get another horse? Do I want to open that, you know, to turn that page in this book and take that route? You're only a few weeks into this, but
2.
it's still very fresh, but I also feel like you've said a lot that you've kind of already learned and experienced with taking in these 2 horses and saying yes to wanting to dive back in. What do you think you would have missed out on if you had kind of let fear get in the way, if you had let maybe feeling like you didn't deserve this experience again of finding these horses, what would you have missed out on if you had just left it at that?
Like the gift that this has been pretty cool. Like to have to really dig in for myself at like, okay, what do I deserve and what can I do? And how do I reconnect and rediscover these skills that used to be so powerful and I used to be so connected and confident about? And now I feel so weak and unconfident around. And I'm doing all of my tricks that I tell all of my clients to do, writing my what do I have the goods for list, like doing all of those things, like, and this opportunity to say, okay, like, like I can grow, I can still grow, I can still learn, I can still give. My heart, I think, would be incomplete without a horse.
Yeah.
Dr. Jenny, as always.
So much.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful conversation.
I love you guys.
I'm going to go hum to my horses right now and do some box breathing.
Thank you so much for listening to Horse Person and giving me a little bit of your precious time and brain space. I hope you found something in this episode that fed your curiosity or gave you a new perspective or a new tool, or maybe just a little inspiration to keep going on the journey that you're on. If you want to support the show, please share it with your friends and family, share it on social media, and leaving a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify is extremely helpful to helping this show grow. And also showing our sponsors some love as well and telling them that you heard them on Horse Person. That is so helpful and will help this show grow and expand and serve you better over time. And finally, if you have a topic that you want to hear, send me an email. My email is caroline@horsepersonpodcast.com. See you next time.